The alarm rang, but Robert didn't hear it. Lying in his bed in an Ohio suburb, his 52 years weighed him down like lead. A month earlier, the dismissal letter from the factory that had employed him for decades arrived, cold and impersonal. Now, with his savings dwindling and bills piling up, despair was knocking at his door. Middle age, for many, isn't a safe haven but a minefield of financial uncertainties. In the United States, the unemployment rate for individuals over 55, while generally lower than the overall average, conceals a worrying truth. When these professionals are laid off, it takes them twice as long to find a new job compared to their younger counterparts. A 2023 Federal Reserve survey revealed that 56% of Americans couldn't cover an unexpected $1,000 expense without resorting to debt or borrowing. For Robert's age group, this number is even more alarming, as many already carry mortgage debt, car loans, and, in some cases, even student loans for their children, totaling tens of thousands of dollars. Middle age is a period where living costs tend to be higher and the ability to professionally reinvent oneself diminishes due to market resistance to hiring older workers, often because they are perceived as demanding higher salaries or being less adaptable to new technologies. Skill obsolescence is a real factor, and a lack of continuous investment in education and new competencies can be fatal. Furthermore, many middle-aged professionals, like Robert, are caught in a cycle of consumer debt, credit cards, and personal loans, which erode their finances even when employed, creating a cycle of vulnerability. Robert's story echoes millions in the U.S., where the line between stability and financial abyss is thinner than one might imagine. He'd spent his life believing that loyalty to a company would guarantee a future. This illusion, common among his generation, crumbled brutally, leaving him in a financial and emotional limbo, with mortgage and car payments becoming insurmountable mountains. Robert's life wasn't uncommon for the American middle class. Married, with 2 adult children who had already moved out, he had a mortgage he'd been financing for 20 years and a car with payments still due. He always considered himself a hard worker, one of those people who arrived early and left late. His routine was predictable. Monday to Friday, the production line awaited him. His wages, while not spectacular, were enough to cover the bills and allow for some modest luxuries, like the annual trip to Florida with the family. However, he never bothered to build a substantial emergency fund. There will always be a job, he thought. The factory will always need me. This complacency, fueled by decades of apparent stability and an almost blind faith in the security of industrial employment, proved to be his Achilles heel. When the news of the production line's closure came, initially, it felt like a distant shock. The company would offer severance packages and relocation assistance. Robert, optimistic, believed he'd quickly find something equivalent, perhaps even better. Reality, however, was far crueler. The doors of the job market seemed to close for someone his age and specialization. Robert's problem isn't isolated. It's a widespread phenomenon affecting millions of middle-aged Americans. The lesson for Robert, and for many in his situation, is that preparation is key to avoiding bankruptcy. The first step is to identify the warning signs that indicate you are on the brink of financial collapse. If your debts are growing faster than your ability to pay them, it's a glaring red flag. Constant reliance on credit for basic expenses, such as food or utility bills, is an indicator that your situation is critical and unsustainable. The absence of a substantial emergency fund, which experts recommend should cover at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses, poses an enormous risk. It's a warning about the need for constant learning, professional reinvention, and, above all, a robust emergency fund. To avoid the red alert of bankruptcy, it's crucial for every individual to take control of their finances with seriousness and discipline. This means closely monitoring your expenses, creating a realistic budget, and sticking to it, rigidly building an emergency fund that covers several months of expenses, and most importantly, never stopping learning and adapting to the new demands and technologies of the job market. Stability no longer comes from a single lifelong job, but from the ability to reinvent oneself, diversify income streams, and create value on different fronts. The final lesson is sharp. Prepare for the unexpected, for it can arrive at any moment, regardless of your age or professional trajectory, and proactivity is your best defense. Robert, for instance, had less than a month's worth. The inability to pay bills on time, with consistent delays on mortgage payments, rent, or services, indicates that the budget is out of control and liquidity is a serious issue. Finally, receiving collection notices and incessant calls from creditors are clear and undeniable signs that the situation is rapidly escalating to a point of no return. Ignoring them will only worsen the problem. For Robert, the path back required courage and a drastic change in mindset. He started by cutting all non-essential expenses ruthlessly. His daily coffee from the corner shop, the numerous streaming subscriptions he didn't fully utilize, and even frequent trips to the supermarket were rethought as he opted to cook more at home and plan meals. He made a detailed inventory of all his debts, prioritizing those with the highest interest rates to attack them first, using the debt avalanche strategy. In parallel, he started looking for odd jobs and temporary work, anything that would generate immediate income, even if it was significantly less than his previous salary. He began offering gardening services to neighbors and doing small repairs in houses in the vicinity, capitalizing on his manual skills. This initial reinvention, though painful for his ego and a stark contrast to his old position, was crucial for stemming the financial bleed and giving him some breathing room. Most importantly was the shift in perspective. Robert stopped lamenting and started acting proactively. He understood that, in today's world, job security is a chimera, and adaptability and resilience are the new valuable currency. Robert's story is a vivid reminder that financial security in middle age isn't a given, but an active and continuous construction. Sarah, 45, a single mother of 2 teenagers in Phoenix, Arizona, had always prided herself on her independence and juggling abilities. She worked as a sales manager at a car dealership, a job that, with commissions, gave her enough to support her family and maintain a modest but comfortable lifestyle. Life was a roller coaster of daily challenges, but she felt in control, a full-time superhero for her children, until a car accident, not her fault, left her with a broken leg and months of intensive physical therapy. Insurance covered some medical expenses, but the loss of income during her medical leave, combined with copays, deductibles, and unexpected uncovered expenses, began to suffocate her already tight budget. Rapidly, credit cards became her lifeline, pushing her to a financial precipice she never imagined facing. Sarah's story dramatically illustrates one of the biggest causes of bankruptcy in the U.S., unforeseen medical expenses, which devastate budgets even for those with health insurance. Before the accident, Sarah managed her finances with almost military precision. She had a tight but functional budget. She paid bills on time, saved a little for her children's college in a separate account, and occasionally managed to take them on modest vacations to a theme park or the beach. What she didn't foresee was the fragility of her financial structure in the face of a catastrophic and prolonged health event. Even with a good health plan offered by her company, there were copays, deductibles that needed to be met before insurance paid 100%, and expenses not covered for specific procedures or medications that quickly accumulated. The loss of commissions, which represented a significant part of her monthly income, was an even bigger blow, cutting her revenue by almost 40%. She tried to maintain her children's routine, but financial pressure led her to use credit cards for basic expenses, a dangerous spiral of debt with exorbitant interest. Her credit card balances grew exponentially, and the interest prevented her from seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, transforming an emergency into a total crisis. Experts are unanimous. The three biggest causes of personal bankruptcy in the United States are medical expenses, job loss, and credit card debt. According to the American Bankruptcy Institute, approximately two-thirds of all personal bankruptcies are linked to medical problems, even for those with insurance. This occurs due to copays, high deductibles, procedures not covered by specific plans, and loss of income during the patient's or caregiver's recovery. In 2023, a Kaiser Family Foundation study revealed that a shocking 100 million adult Americans have medical debt, and 12% of them owe more than $10,000, a financial burden that prevents many from progressing. Experts are unanimous. The three biggest causes of personal bankruptcy in the United States are medical expenses, job loss, and credit card debt. According to the American Bankruptcy Institute, approximately two-thirds of all personal bankruptcies are linked to medical problems, even for those with insurance. This occurs due to copays, high deductibles, procedures not covered by specific plans, and loss of income during the patient's or caregiver's recovery. In 2023, a Kaiser Family Foundation study revealed that a shocking 100 million adult Americans have medical debt, and 12% of them owe more than $10,000, a financial burden that prevents many from progressing. For Sarah, the problem analysis began with the acceptance that she needed professional help. The shame of her situation prevented her from seeking support, but the increasing collection calls, mortgage foreclosure threats, and the vision of her children's uncertain future forced her to act. Many hospitals and healthcare providers are willing to negotiate bills, especially if the patient demonstrates financial hardship. She spent hours on the phone, documenting every conversation, and managed to significantly reduce some invoices. The practical lesson is clear. Don't wait for the crisis to worsen before acting. Proactivity is your greatest ally. Understanding the causes of bankruptcy and the available protection mechanisms is the crucial first step to avoiding the worst-case scenario. It's fundamental to have an emergency fund, however small, and adequate health insurance that truly covers significant and unforeseen expenses. Furthermore, it's crucial to avoid excessive credit card use, and if debts accumulate, seek financial counseling as soon as possible. Bankruptcy isn't the end of the line, but an opportunity for a fresh start and a restructuring of one's financial life. Understanding its nuances and being open to solutions can be the difference between sinking and rising stronger and smarter. Sarah is now on a payment plan that, though challenging, gives her hope for a more stable and debt-free future. She also worked with her credit counselor to negotiate with credit card companies. In some cases, they were able to reduce interest rates or create more accessible payment plans, consolidating several debts into a single installment with lower interest. In parallel, Sarah started looking for alternative income sources while recovering. Initially, she did call center work from home, leveraging her communication skills. Later, when her mobility improved, she began tutoring high school students online, a skill she always had but never considered as a viable income source. This new income, however modest, alleviated the pressure. Most importantly was budget discipline. She cut all non-essential expenses with fierce determination and monitored every dollar spent, ensuring the money went to basic needs and priority debt payments, creating a clear and measurable attack plan. She sought a non-profit credit counselor, a recognized organization that helped her map her debts, understand her rights, and explore her options. One of the first things the counselor did was explain the different types of bankruptcy and the protections they offer. While Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 bankruptcies are the most common, the decision on which path to take depends on the debtor's income, assets, and type of debt. Sarah learned that, for her, debt reorganization, perhaps via Chapter 13, would be a more viable option, as she didn't want to lose her home, the home she built for her family. The counselor also helped her understand that bankruptcy, though frightening, could be a tool for a fresh start. not a mark of failure. Sarah's overcoming technique began with active renegotiation of her medical debts. Sarah's story, though still ongoing, is a testament to human resilience and the undeniable importance of seeking professional help when finances spiral. Mark, 58, a decorated Navy veteran and former senior software engineer in Seattle, Washington, watched his life unravel in slow motion. After being laid off in a corporate restructuring that swept away many experienced professionals, he used his life savings to open a small IT consulting business, a long-held entrepreneurial dream. The problem? He was a brilliant engineer, but an inexperienced entrepreneur without a solid business plan. A graduate of a top engineering university, with a solid career and a good salary that allowed him to build considerable wealth, including investments and an appreciated home. However, the transition to pre-retirement and the dream of being his own boss proved to be an unexpected and dangerous challenge. There's no magic formula, but rather a set of proven strategies that, when applied consistently and with determination, can lead to recovery. The first is recognition and acceptance of the situation. Many, like Mark initially, isolate themselves and avoid confronting reality, which only worsens the problem. Shame and fear are enemies of recovery. The second is the creation of a rigorous and ruthless budget, drastically cutting all non-essential expenses. This means differentiating between needs and wants without compromise. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American household's expenses on dining out, entertainment, and transportation can be drastically reduced to free up capital for debt repayment. The third is debt negotiation with creditors. Creditors, in many cases, prefer to receive part of what they are owed rather than lose everything in a bankruptcy process, and may be open to payment plans or settlements. The last strategy, and perhaps the most crucial, is increasing income. Whether through a new full-time job, side hustles, freelance work, or the rapid development of new skills and competencies, generating more money is fundamental to accelerating recovery and gaining breathing room. He always thought his savings would be sufficient to cover his golden years, but the risky business investment and lack of adequate working capital led to his financial ruin. What he didn't consider was the need for a solid business plan, a marketing fund, and, crucially, a safety net for himself during the initial phase of the venture. Gradually, the business income couldn't even cover his most basic personal expenses, and he started using funds meant for the business to cover rent, food, and utility bills. The situation deteriorated, and each month, Mark sank deeper. He avoided opening bills, ignored incessant calls from collectors, and lived in a constant state of anxiety and sleep deprivation, feeling ashamed and incapable. Months passed without significant steady clients. His Grand Victorian home's bills began to accumulate, and the business loan, which he eventually used to cover urgent personal expenses, turned into a nightmare of escalating interest. Mark, accustomed to rigid military and corporate structures, was lost in financial chaos, sinking deeper each day. Pride prevented him from openly discussing his situation, but reality knocked on his door with eviction notices and the threat of mortgage foreclosure. He was on the verge of bankruptcy, with liabilities far outweighing his assets. Mark's trajectory had been one of success for years. Getting out of a financial hole, especially after bankruptcy or extreme indebtedness, requires a multifaceted and disciplined approach. For Mark, the first step was swallowing his pride and seeking specialized help. He found a financial advisor specializing in bankruptcy recovery and debt restructuring, recommended by a friend. The advisor helped him make a complete and brutally honest inventory of his assets and debts, a painful but absolutely necessary task to understand the true extent of the problem. Instead of simply declaring bankruptcy immediately, the advisor suggested a debt restructuring plan and an intensive job search program. Mark, with his vast experience in software engineering, still had considerable value in the job market, is an inspiring example that it's possible to get out of the hole, even when the situation seems hopeless and debts are overwhelming. The practical lesson is clear. Recovery requires immediate action, iron discipline, and often painful but temporary sacrifices. Don't hesitate to seek professional help from financial advisors, credit counseling agencies, or even psychological support to deal with the stress. Be ruthless in cutting expenses and proactive in seeking new income sources, exploring all your skills. Resilience, humility, and the ability to adapt quickly to new realities are the pillars for rebuilding your financial life solidly and sustainably. Mark understood that bankruptcy isn't a period at the end of his story, but a comma, and that financial re-education and professional reinvention are essential for a more secure and prosperous financial future. Shame must be replaced by the unwavering determination to learn from mistakes and build a stronger foundation for tomorrow. But needed to update his skills and his job search approach, which was outdated. The strategy was divided into two fronts: drastic reduction of fixed and variable expenses and aggressive income generation. He sold his expensive car and large, old house, which generated many maintenance costs, moving to a smaller, cheaper apartment on the outskirts. Although it was a significant reduction in his standard of living and a blow to his ego, the decrease in fixed costs was an immense and immediate relief. Mark's overcoming technique involved a powerful combination of professional reinvention and unwavering financial discipline. He invested in online courses and intensive boot camps to update his skills in programming languages and new technologies like artificial intelligence and cloud computing, making himself more competitive in the market. He actively participated in job fairs, networking workshops, and used online job search platforms, something he had neglected for years. In parallel, he started working as a rideshare driver and making food deliveries during peak hours, an immediate income source that, though modest, covered his basic expenses and prevented him from incurring more debt. The advisor also helped him skillfully negotiate with his business creditors, securing extended deadlines and reduced interest rates for some of the debts, which alleviated the pressure. With every dollar saved and every penny earned through the sweat of his labor, Mark felt a sense of control return and his dignity restored. He learned to live with less, to prioritize essentials, and to value every job opportunity, however humble. His resilience, forged in years of military service and his challenging career, was tested to its limit, but it prevailed. Mark's financial recovery, though still ongoing and requiring continuous sacrifices. Emily, 35, a talented and sought-after graphic designer in Austin, Texas, had an enviable salary and a lifestyle many would consider ideal. She traveled to exotic destinations, bought designer clothes from the latest collections, and frequented the trendiest and most expensive restaurants in the city. Her social media presence radiated success and glamour. She grew up in a home where money wasn't an open and honest topic of conversation, and where the implicit message was clear: if you have money, spend it to enjoy life. If you don't, work harder to get it. This mindset led her into a dangerous trap of rampant consumerism. She didn't understand the crucial difference between assets and liabilities, didn't know how compound interest worked, and the idea of a budget seemed like an unnecessary restriction on her freedom. Emily lived in the now, driven by consumer trends, the pursuit of instant gratification, and the social pressure to maintain appearances for her social circle. Every salary increase she received was accompanied by a proportional, or even greater, increase in expenses, a phenomenon known as lifestyle inflation. She accumulated luxury items and expensive experiences, but she didn't build net worth, which left her extremely vulnerable to any unexpected financial setback. The result was a growing dependence on revolving credit, an unsustainable bubble that was about to burst at any moment. However, behind the facade of prosperity and sophistication lay a dark secret. She lived paycheck to paycheck, with credit cards constantly at their spending limit, accumulating exorbitant interest month after month. Financial literacy was never a priority for her. Her parents, though well-intentioned, only taught her to work hard and spend what she earned, with no mention of saving, investing, or debt management. Now, with the economy slowing down and the threat of layoffs looming over her company due to cost-cutting, Emily felt a chill down her spine. She realized that despite earning well, she was one step away from a deep financial crisis, all because she didn't understand the most basic fundamentals of managing her own money. Emily's lack of financial literacy wasn't an intentional character flaw, but rather a gap in her upbringing. Financial literacy is the backbone of any healthy financial life, and its absence is, without a doubt, one of the biggest causes of financial difficulties and personal bankruptcies in the U.S. Recent 2024. Research shows that less than 40% of American adults can correctly answer basic financial questions, such as concepts of interest, inflation, and investment diversification. This alarming lack of knowledge leads to a series of common and disastrous mistakes. Not having a budget which prevents control and exact knowledge of where money is going. Not building an emergency fund, leaving people completely exposed to unforeseen circumstances like job loss or medical expenses. Accumulating high-cost debt, especially from credit cards where interest can be overwhelming and almost impossible to pay off. Not investing for the future, neglecting the transformative power of compound interest working in your favor. And living beyond your means, driven by excessive consumption and social pressure to maintain a certain lifestyle. A 2022 report by the FINRA Foundation revealed that nearly 1 in 5 Americans cannot pay their medical bills and 1 in 10 cannot pay utility bills, evidencing widespread financial fragility and the direct impact of a lack of education. These errors, often stemming from financial ignorance, create a vicious cycle of indebtedness, stress, and, in many cases, lead to bankruptcy. For Emily, the awakening came with the real and tangible fear of losing her job and facing bankruptcy, something she never imagined possible. She decided it was time to learn seriously and committedly. The first step was to seek reliable online resources and introductory books on financial literacy. She started with basic concepts: how to create an effective budget, the vital importance of an emergency fund, and how credit card interest works perversely against the consumer. The concept of paying herself first, that is, saving and investing a portion of her income even before thinking about spending, was a revelation that changed her perspective. Emily realized she was trading her future security and financial freedom for instant, superficial gratification. She also discovered the 50-30-20 rule for budgeting: 50% of income for essential needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and debt repayment. This helped her visualize clearly where her money should go, instead of just spending it thoughtlessly or without planning. She finally began to see money as a tool, not an end in itself. Emily's overcoming technique was the implementation of a practical, disciplined, and daily financial literacy plan. She started by tracking every single penny she spent for an entire month, which was an overwhelming shock as she realized how much money was being wasted on things she didn't even truly value. Then, she created a detailed and realistic budget using a personal finance app and committed to following it rigorously, cutting unnecessary expenses like expensive daily lunches and impulsive clothing purchases. Her top priority became paying off the credit card debt with the highest interest rate, using either the debt snowball method or the debt avalanche method. Additionally, she began building her emergency fund, depositing a small but consistent amount into a high-yield savings account with each paycheck. She also started reading about basic investments, such as index funds and retirement accounts, something that previously seemed a complex and inaccessible mystery. With each small victory, Emily felt more confident and in control. Emily's transformation is a powerful and inspiring testament to the profound impact that financial literacy can have on a person's life. The practical lesson is clear and undeniable. Financial knowledge is power, and investing in your financial education is as important as investing in your career or your health. Start with the basics. Create a functional budget, closely monitor your spending, build a solid emergency fund, and understand the true cost of debt. Utilize the many free resources available, such as books, blogs, podcasts, and online courses. The earlier you start learning and applying these principles, the greater the positive and transformative impact on your life will be. Financial literacy isn't just about numbers and calculations, but about making conscious and informed decisions that will lead you to a more secure, stress-free, and opportunity-filled future. Emily is now on the right track, not only paying off her debts and freeing herself from the shackles of credit, but also building a solid and sustainable financial future, proving that it is never too late to learn to manage your money and take control of your financial destiny. David, 48, a father of 3 in a small Kansas town, always worked hard as a manager at a building materials store. His wife, Susan, was a dedicated elementary school teacher. Together, they managed to keep their household bills paid, but the dream of a comfortable retirement and sending their children to college debt-free seemed increasingly distant, almost unattainable. They weren't impulsive spenders. In fact, they were quite frugal and careful with their spending. The problem wasn't poor financial management itself, but income stagnation and the constant, relentless increase in the cost of living. It's at this point that extra income strategies and smart investments become crucial and transformative. Generating extra income can come in various forms and flexibilities. Freelance work using existing skills, selling handmade products or reselling items online, renting out properties or spare rooms, or even monetizing hobbies and passions that were once just pastimes. According to a 2023 Statista survey, a staggering 45% of Americans have some form of extra income, indicating a growing need for an acceptance of side hustles to supplement their budgets. As for investments, lack of knowledge is a significant barrier. A 2024 Northwestern Mutual study showed that 49% of Americans feel anxious about financial planning, and many avoid investing due to fear, lack of knowledge, or believing it's only for the rich. However, time is the greatest ally in investing, and the power of compound interest can turn small amounts into fortunes over decades. Just saving isn't enough. Money needs to work for you, leveraging this power. Inflation eroded their purchasing power each year, and expenses for their children, from extracurricular activities and school supplies to unexpected doctor's visits and, eventually, college, only increased. They had some savings in a traditional savings account, but the interest was negligible, barely covering inflation, which meant their money was, in fact, losing value. The idea of investing seemed intimidating, complex, and risky, reserved for wealthy people or those with market knowledge they didn't possess. The knowledge they had was about working for a salary, not about how to make money multiply through investments. This scenario left them trapped in a cycle of subsistence, unable to progress financially and build the security and legacy they so desired for their family. They lived what many Americans experienced, a middle-class life with rising expenses, such as healthcare and education costs, and little wiggle room to build wealth or invest significantly. When Susan's salary was frozen for 3 consecutive years due to school district budget cuts, the financial pressure dramatically increased. David realized that traditional salaries alone wouldn't be enough to achieve their dreams and ensure their family's security. He needed more, but didn't know where to start looking for significant extra income or how to make the money they already had work for them intelligently. David and Susan's situation was common and painfully real for millions of American families. For many Americans, primary income alone isn't enough to achieve financial independence, build significant wealth, or deal with life's inevitable unforeseen circumstances. David and Susan, motivated by stagnation and the desire for a better future, decided to change their financial approach. They began diligently researching extra income opportunities that fit their already busy routines, without compromising their primary jobs or family life. David had notable skills in carpentry, small repairs, and furniture assembly. David began offering his carpentry and small repair services to neighbors and friends on weekends and evenings. He created a small portfolio of his work, word of mouth spread, and in a short time, he began to have consistent demand for his services. The practical lesson is clear and universal. Don't rely on a single income source, and make your money work for you, not against you. Explore your skills, passions, and even your hobbies to create additional income streams that complement your primary salary. Start investing early, even with small amounts, and prioritize low cost, diversified long-term investments like index funds, leveraging the power of compound interest. Investment education doesn't have to be complex or intimidating. Many accessible resources exist for beginners. Financial security and wealth building aren't just about how much you earn, but about how you manage, save, and, crucially, multiply that money over time. David and Susan, now with a solid and multifaceted plan, feel more confident and optimistic about the future, knowing they are building a lasting financial legacy for their children and ensuring a more comfortable retirement for themselves. Susan, in turn, started offering text editing services to university students and small businesses, and also home organization services to local and online clients. These activities generated significant extra income that, instead of being spent, they directed entirely to two strategic purposes: paying off small remaining debts and investing for the future. They opened an investment account with a low-cost online brokerage and began investing in an index fund that tracks the S&P 500, giving them exposure to the growth of major American companies. Consistency was key. They deposited a fixed amount every month, regardless of short-term market fluctuations. In the long run, this strategy proved to be the most effective. They also began contributing more to their retirement accounts, taking advantage of David's company's matching contributions, which was essentially free money. Susan, in turn, was excellent at organizing, writing, and editing, and loved gardening. The first step was to identify these latent skills and think about how to monetize them practically. They also began reading avidly about basic investments, starting with personal finance books and podcasts aimed at beginners, focusing on long-term, low-risk concepts, demystifying the idea that investing is only for speculators. The idea wasn't to get rich overnight, but to build a solid and sustainable foundation for the future. They learned about the importance of diversifying investments, the fundamental difference between stocks and bonds, and the simplicity and effectiveness of low-cost index funds, which allow investing in hundreds of companies at once. The decision was to start small, but consistently and with discipline. David and Susan's overcoming technique involved implementing two parallel and complementary strategies: increasing active income through side hustles and starting to invest passively and consistently. David and Susan's story demonstrates the transformative power of combining extra income generation with smart and strategic investments. Maria, 55, a dedicated and resilient nurse in Miami, Florida, was exhausted, but with a gleam of triumph in her eyes. After years of hard work, religiously saving every penny and paying off her debts with iron discipline, she finally felt financially secure. Her house was paid off. She had a robust emergency fund capable of covering over a year of expenses, and a good investment portfolio for retirement with a clear horizon ahead. The problem? She was afraid of losing everything. She had seen so many cases of people who, after achieving stability, fell into financial traps again. whether due to unexpected crises, mismanagement of new capital, or simply neglect. She wondered how to maintain this hard-won security, how to avoid past mistakes and new threats emerging on the horizon, like rampant inflation or economic crises. Maria wanted not just to survive financially, but to thrive sustainably, ensuring her efforts wouldn't be in vain. She sought a map for financial perpetuity. Maria's journey to financial security was long, arduous, and full of sacrifices. She immigrated to the U.S. with little more than the clothes on her back and built her life from scratch, working tirelessly at 2 jobs to save money. Every dollar saved was the result of immense effort, sleepless nights, and difficult choices. That is why the idea of losing this newly gained security terrified her more than the initial poverty itself. She had witnessed friends and colleagues who, after paying off their mortgages, got into debt again with expensive and unnecessary renovations, or by financially helping adult children who couldn't support themselves. Others fell victim to elaborate financial scams, targeting their life savings, or were caught off guard by unexpected health crises, even with insurance. The media was full of news about impending recessions, stock market volatility, and the rising cost of living. Maria didn't want to be another statistic of one day rich, next day poor. Her concern was valid. Maintaining financial security is an ongoing challenge, not a static final destination. It requires constant vigilance and adaptation to new economic realities. Staying financially secure in the long term is a multifaceted challenge that requires more than just saving and investing. It involves a complex combination of planning, vigilance, and continuous adaptation to the changing economic landscape. The threats to financial security are diverse and insidious. Inflation, which silently erodes purchasing power of saved money. Economic crises and recessions, which can lead to job loss and drastic devaluation of investments. Unexpected and overwhelming medical expenses, even with health insurance, due to copays and deductibles. Aging, which brings increasing healthcare costs, and, eventually, long-term care, which can be astronomically expensive. And even sophisticated financial scams, which specifically target the elderly and most vulnerable, causing irreversible financial losses. AARP data shows that seniors lose billions of dollars annually to financial fraud and scams. To combat these challenges and ensure a sustainable financial life, it's essential to have a proactive strategy that includes periodic and rigorous budget review, smart investment diversification, comprehensive protection against unforeseen risks, and meticulous future planning, ensuring your assets are protected against life storms. For Maria, the strategy for financial sustainability began with the idea of protection and continuous review of her plan. She realized that true security came not just from having accumulated money, but from actively protecting that money and her assets. The first step was to review and update her insurance planning. She ensured that her health insurance was comprehensive enough to cover not only common illnesses, but also chronic conditions, and crucially, that it included long-term care insurance, coverage something essential for aging, and which can cost a fortune without planning. She also reevaluated her life and disability insurance, adjusting them to reflect her current situation and goals. Next, she sought out a certified and impartial financial advisor for a complete and in-depth review of her investment portfolio. The goal was to ensure her investments were not only growing, but also aligned with her long-term goals and risk tolerance, and that they were properly diversified to mitigate the impacts of market volatility. The advisor helped her understand the importance of periodically rebalancing her portfolio to maintain the desired balance between risk and return. Maria's overcoming technique for continuous security involved 3 essential pillars: smart protection, strategic diversification, and active continuous education. In terms of protection, She implemented a risk management plan that included adequate insurance for all eventualities and an even larger emergency fund than recommended, capable of covering at least 12 months of basic expenses, giving her immense safety margin. She also created a contingency plan for a health crisis or loss of capacity, including establishing updated powers of attorney and wills, ensuring her wishes would be carried out and her family protected. For diversification, her advisor guided her to spread her investments across different asset classes, stocks, bonds, real estate, and in different economic sectors, to minimize the risk of significant losses in case of a downturn in a single sector or investment type. She also invested a small portion of her capital in rental properties, creating an additional passive income stream that wasn't dependent on the financial market. Finally, Maria committed to continuous financial education. She continued to read books and articles, attend online seminars, and stay informed about economic trends and new investment and wealth protection strategies. She also became more vigilant against financial scams, learning to identify warning signs and protect her personal information. Maria's story is a powerful testament that building financial security is only half the battle. The other half, equally crucial, is maintaining and making it last. The practical lesson is that financial security is an ongoing journey of learning, adaptation, and constant vigilance. For a truly sustainable and peaceful financial future, it's crucial to protect your assets proactively with adequate insurance and a robust emergency fund. Diversify your investments strategically to mitigate risks and maximize returns. Plan for the long term, carefully considering rising healthcare costs, retirement care, and future needs. And finally, stay educated and vigilant against new threats, fraud, and financial scams. Self-discipline, periodic review of your financial plan, and seeking professional advice when necessary are indispensable for ensuring the longevity of your wealth. Maria now lives with more peace of mind and confidence, knowing that she has not only achieved security, but is also taking all necessary steps to preserve it and enjoy a more stable and worry-free future for herself and her family.